We are trying to open up the government. The Democrats are not. They are playing politics. It needs to stop.
We want to reopen the government, enact a spending agreement that actually makes life better for the American people and addresses the Republican health care crisis.
Democrats have proven over and over again they don't care about premiums for families. They wanted to bail out insurance companies.
We've got to also make sure that when a deal is struck, it is kept. Russ Vought at the OMB cannot pick and choose which federal programs to fund.
Technically, he can. Technically, he might be starting to do that. The Office of Management and Budget is preparing to batten down the hatches. OMB is making every preparation to batten down the hatches, ride out the Democrats' intransigence, pay the troops, pay law enforcement, continue the RIFs. And wait, RIFs are, by the way, people getting fired. And it does open the door to that as we are in the second week of the government shutdown. Let's bring in our panel. Katie Pavlich, Fox News contributor. Yemisi Egbewale is the former chief of staff and advisor to the Biden White House press office. And Josh Holmes, co-host of the Ruthless podcast, former chief of staff to Senator Mitch McConnell. Josh, we've been through this. Yeah. We've been through a lot of fiscal cliffs. We've been through... It does not seem like this one's ending anytime soon.
It does not, no. And I think that what you're seeing out of OMB today, the Schumer shutdown strategy might be the biggest cell phone that we've seen in Washington in an awful long time, in that they're so angry that they don't have control of the federal government that they're willing to give away the only leverage they have in terms of directing spending on priorities that they've had. Remember, they're arguing about a budget that was enacted under Biden. Joe Biden's continuing resolution, and that's what they're arguing against. And then they fuse in the health care component, of course, a system that they entirely designed soup to nuts and asked taxpayers to subsidize once it didn't work. This whole discussion, it has no way out for Senate Democrats, so I think it'll go on a while.
From the Democratic point of view, is there a sense that the fight, just the fight, pushing back on Donald Trump is enough to get over the fact that they're calling for a clean, continuing resolution, funding the government where we were and working out the details till the end of the year?
Well, I think the president keeps adding some fuel to the fire here. I mean, he is riling up the Democrats when he talks about shutting down Democratic programs that we know are actually bipartisan. Small business loans, veterans outreach, rural broadband. Those are programs that focus on both Democrats and Republicans. They focus on Americans. And so if anything, it helps Democrats kind of dig in their heels a bit more because these are programs that are for the utility of Americans.
Mm-hmm. But once people start getting, don't get the checks, which is this week, it changes the dynamic.
But it seems that Democrats are willing to sacrifice their own programs for the sake of going after Trump. And when they stop getting those checks, the Republicans can say, look, we 3 weeks ago now passed a continuing resolution to make sure that those checks would come through. Democrats are perfectly happy with getting these programs defunded because the government is out of money for the sake of having a talking point against Donald Trump. All Senate Democrats have to do is vote for this continuing resolution, open up the government, and then they can ask for this $1.5 trillion in pet projects that they're demanding on a clean CR, which has never been the norm before. It's never been demanding these pet projects and programs that Republicans defunded as a result of winning the 2024 election.
There's another element to this. Adelita Grijalva, she won a special election to fill her father's seat, and she has not been sworn in yet, officially, Josh, and there are a lot of folks saying, why is that? Speaker Johnson saying because the House is not in session, others charging that it's because she's the 218th vote that could overturn the ability to block releasing the Epstein files. Here is a question to Johnson about that.
Let's talk about Grijalva and Epstein. Okay, once more for everybody. Everybody in Congress, I think, is for maximum transparency of the Epstein files. That is underway right now. I'm going to be happy to administer the oath to her as I am to every member who wins a who is duly elected to this body. It's a great honor. But she won her election after the House was out of session. So we've not had a full session. She deserves to have all the pomp and circumstance that everybody else does.
Buy that?
Yeah, no, it's an irrelevant discussion from this standpoint. The House did its job. I mean, everybody forgets about that component. The House did its job. They're the one chamber here that has gotten this thing over the finish line. It would be ridiculous strategy to try to reconvene a House of Representatives while you've got Senate Democrats shutting down the federal government. You're not negotiating against yourselves. The project, it's all there. And that's what needs to be negotiated at this point. So I think that's largely irrelevant.
Is the Epstein stuff going to be a Democratic talking point?
Oh, I think 100%. Senators Ruben Gallego and Mark Kelly and Adelita Grijalva confronted Mike Johnson. She doesn't want the pomp and circumstance. She's fine without it. She just wants to get to her job, and that job is going to be that one concerning vote.
Here is Volodymyr Zelensky. He arrives at the White House Friday, talking this weekend Sunday briefing about what he expects after the Gaza peace deal.
It gives signals for us and hope that with such pressure, what President Trump used in Middle East to make peace, and I hope that he will use the same instruments, even more, to pressure Putin to stop his war in Ukraine.
It hasn't worked with Putin yet. By the way, how about this sunset?
Beautiful.
I just want to note
Gorgeous.
that.
Nice to
It's
see.
not, that's real color. It hasn't worked so far with Putin. But
Yeah.
does this change the dynamic? I was talking to General Keane about that earlier.
It certainly does change the dynamic. President Trump on Air Force One, when he was on his way back, and to actually the Middle East for this big peace deal where he had 30-plus countries coming together in Egypt, said that he's willing to potentially give Ukraine Tomahawk missiles, which would change the dynamics of the force on the ground in Ukraine and in Russia. In terms of the players here, they're obviously very different. The way the president has been successful with the Middle East problems, he has been able to bring people together from an economic, commercial perspective to really end this terrorism problem that they've embraced for so many years. This is obviously different because they are state actors, but the president has said that he thought Ukraine-Russia would be the easiest problem he could solve. It's been very, very difficult, especially since Russia is a nuclear power, but the president seems more than ever willing to stand up to Vladimir Putin, as he has in the past, but this time by saying, if you're not willing to come to the table, we're going to actually arm Ukraine with what they need to make sure that they have the ability to at least make some headway during this war.
I want to ask you one more question. The Rose Garden, this ceremony, really beautiful, with the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously awarded to Charlie Kirk. Take a listen.
1 month after Charlie's death, we still feel the terrible shock and the pain of his loss, like just about nobody I can think of. Charlie Kirk was one of a kind. He was unstoppable, and he really was.
Today we're gathered not only to celebrate Charlie's birthday, but to honor a truth that he gave his entire life to defend, and that's freedom.
I know you were in the Rose Garden for your dear friend. Erica's speech, she continues to wow me every time she talks, every time.
Absolutely. For her to, again, get up on an international stage at the White House and talk about her husband and to really calm the nerves of people who miss Charlie, who are worried about the conservative movement. Her words were absolutely beautiful, and it was so personal. She talked about how it was always difficult to find a gift for Charlie, and she said a lot of you can probably relate to that, trying to find a gift for your spouse. So she said, it's his birthday today, and this is the best gift that could have been given to him, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. So
amazing. Thank you for sharing
Thank
that.
you.
Thanks, panel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.